All right. We are live. We are live. So, in a couple minutes, I'm going to give people a little bit of chance to come in, if they do come in, and we'll start our live in about 2 minutes. If we don't, if we don't have people come in to join this open discussion, we'll figure out another way to do this, and we'll talk about some announcements that I have for you to come on up really soon. So we'll give about another minute or two, and then we'll be ready to go. So hopefully everybody out there is having a good time, enjoying yourself. It is a Tuesday, uh, February 15th, a week away from 2/22/22. I don't know why that means anything to me, but that's kind of cool. So once again, this tonight is an open session, open chat, where I really want to hear from people. So I don't have a set of notes or anything like that. I have the topic that I want to go with, and I want to talk about that, but I'm open to anything within the genre of education. That is my area. I know some other things, but that is my area, so I like to talk in that area. And I leave the experts to do their expert thing in their field. So that said, it is now 7:02, and very soon we're going to get everything kicked off and started. So once again, I'll give people a few more minutes, understanding that it was difficult putting this one out here to, you know, for advertising, but I got to figure out a way to get to more people and get more folks on the live, because I don't want to be the one doing the chatting on by myself. So that said, we are here and live and ready to go. So with that, let's get started. Let's get started. It's 3 minutes after. And I want to introduce the topic. And I'll come back and talk about it again, but I want to introduce the topic and where it came from and how I got to this point. The topic is, what has education meant for you? What has education meant for you? For all of us, and I'm not just talking about the doctoral degree, the PhD, and things like that. I'm talking about education in general. So everyone shares some connection to education. If you live in America, it was mandatory that you went to school. We called it compulsory education. But really, what did education mean for you? So that is the topic. How this topic started was someone actually put up a tweet in Twitter about what education meant for them, and asked the general question to everyone else, essentially, what does it mean to you? And I answered the question as truthfully as I could. In fact, I need to pull it up and make sure I read this correctly, because although I did answer it, it was, in that moment. So that said, I answered the question. It's been talk all day, so I found it. They asked, in fact, the exact question was, current and past PhD students, why did you decide to do a PhD? Strictly, that was the question. My answer, it was always on my list to do. It was always part of the plan to earn a PhD. People actually called me professor long before the PhD. In fact, even my mother-in-law called me the professor long before I finished the PhD. People on the job did. Sometimes it was a joke. Sometimes it was Kind of like, all right, I see you in that role. Who knows? Um, I also wrote then, also, I tend to fix my issues with education. I tend to fix my issues with education. That didn't start with doing a PhD program. That didn't start with the first master's or the second master's or the first bachelor's or the certificate in data analytics, anything like that. It didn't start there. I've been fixing my issues with education all my life. It meant for me dealing with issues of abandonment, loneliness, rejection. I've doubled down and tripled down into education as a way to fix some of those issues. I wasn't the greatest ball player, things like that, but I could be smart. I wasn't, the most popular, but I could be smart. So that was a solution to my personal issues. And I had a discussion today on Facebook and asked what some of the issues, and I told them the issues, and I'm like, well, those things education allowed me to escape from. It was a way to not stay in the neighborhood too long. There was an incident I had around 10th grade where me and my closest friends split. Education became the thing that I did to get me away from that. So what education had meant for me, and I don't want to use the word escape, but it meant a safe refuge to not deal with directly other issues going on with me. Other feelings of loneliness, abandonment, things like that. When I think about the times I've doubled down and tripled down in education, they generally came, as most of us, when we recognized we needed to retool or do something. When economic times get bad, college enrollments go up because people realize they have to retool themselves to then go off and do something different or take another pathway or excel in their current career. Education was always that thing. So oftentimes we use education to get through a situation. Now, I realize I use education to run from a lot. I would be at a point where if I started seeing that I wasn't going to be at this job for long, I went ahead and got another degree and then plotted my move next. So education was always that thing that helped me go to a next thing. And that started, I could say, back in grade school. Back in when my issues weren't education, when I didn't have an issue with a teacher, my issues personally were always those things that I would find education as a refuge for. Truthfully, probably should have got some counseling, but we learn that issue and those things later as we deal with issues and stuff like that. So education meant that for me. If you are joining now, please come in to the chats if possible, and let's talk about what education has meant for you. And it doesn't matter what level of education you want to talk about. It doesn't matter if it's a positive meaning or a negative meaning. All of these things we work out. Because while I can give you all of those things of abandonment and, loneliness and fear of rejection and stuff like that, I can also tell you that education was my stage. It was the one place I knew I could win, and everybody needs that win. So if you're out here, the question or topic is, what does education mean for you? And I would like for you to either do the chats, or if you want to come in and talk with me, let me know in the chats. I can send you an invite, and we can get you in here and we can do some talking. So while we're doing that, and while kind of waiting off, to see what people want to do, I also want to send a shout out, as you know I do, and some announcements. The first shout out always goes to Bougie Shootery, www.bougieshootery.com, or Bougie Shootery, BOUGIE on all social media platforms, IG, Facebook, Uh, I don't know if she's on LinkedIn yet, but she could be there too. But Miss Jacqueline Robinson, bougieshootery.com. Shout out to you and the business. And I have another announcement to make. I will be offering, actually, my company, myadvantage.org, will be offering a free webinar coming up April 13th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The title of it is Ambitions of a Writer, the 5 Psychologies of the Writer Mindset. And whatever stage you're in, if you're doing academic writing for your doctoral program, if you're in a graduate school and you're writing, if you're an undergrad and you're writing, if you want to write as a writer, an author, Ambitions of a Writer, the 5 Psychologies of the Writer Mindset, will be coming on April 13th, 2022, 8 p.m. Standard Time. Advertisements will be going out at the very beginning of March. Registration begins March 1st. But what you'll do is learn strategies that can work immediately, that you can put in place immediately upon leaving that webinar. So that's what you will get from this webinar. What you can also do is walk away. You will actually walk away from that thing with a plan for more focused writing. And I'll also show you how to use big data to set your critical problem. These are just 3 of the 5 psychologies that we're going to dive deep into for that webinar. It's a 45-minute webinar from 8 p.m. to 8:45. Once again, that is a Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. So that is my first set of shout outs and announcements. And I want to go back in and continue this conversation about what does education, or what has education meant for you. I can say this too. For me, education has always meant a safe bet. I had a conversation with my son probably about 2 years ago. He was a little upset. He was going through some things, and we had never really talked that deep. But he kind of regretted the fact that he didn't finish school. He felt more so that he let me down by not finishing school. And I had to let him know, because right now he's a pretty successful music producer, engineer in Atlanta, doing very well, loves what he does, loves getting up and going to do it. He's happy, and he's steadily climbing. You'll hopefully, God willing, see his name out there sometime soon. But at that time we had the conversation, he was feeling like he didn't finish college, and he felt like that was a major letdown. And I had to tell him, one, you took the greatest bet you could. You bet on yourself. Me going to college was kind of taking the safe bet. I'm essentially going to these universities, giving them my money, and saying, educate me. Rather than go out and find out things for myself, or take an apprenticeship, which he did, and learning his trade, which he has. I took the safe bet, going to college and getting your degrees and all that kind of stuff. It ain't gonna make you rich, but it does give you a leg up, if you're a betting person, So if you're betting, taking a safe bet, education is a good route to take, because it will set you up to have a decent life. And you can get some of your time back depending on how you want to do it. So once again, that I see Luwan has come in. Greetings, sister. And she writes this, and I'm going to kind of share this on the screen as I read it. She writes, education is a foundation that no one can take from me. That is extremely true. I had to learn that. I had to learn that you can't take what I know. You can't take the skills that I have. The one thing about that, if you do this right, you can get yourself to a point where people will pay you for what you know. People will pay you for your skill set. And when everything else is gone, because people will come back for what's theirs, when everything else is gone, you still have that education. You still have that skill set. You still have the ability to do what you have to do and learn how to make it on your own if need be, through having an education. So that is an excellent way to look at that. Thank you, Luwan, for that. But that is what education means for us. And I've heard that all my life. Once you get it, they can't take it back. And there's nothing truer to that. Thank you so much for that one. But that is what, we use it for sometimes. And you use it to get a skill set, to get a band of knowledge, and sometimes to progress in your career. But let's say that career doesn't work out. It doesn't do what you expected it to do. You still good. You still are good. You have a skill that no one can take. You have a education that no one can argue against unless you went to an unaccredited university or something like that. But once you have it, they cannot take it from you. So that is an excellent understanding and framing of what education can mean for you. One other thing, and I was talking about that whole idea of the safe bet. We can look at statistics and things like that, and I'm quite sure everybody knows somebody who has an uncle that's a plumber who makes six figures. I get it. But if we're looking at statistically, on average, you're better off having gone for higher education of any kind. Of any kind. And I don't necessarily mean the four-year college route, but of any kind. We're not going to put all our eggs in the public school basket, but it's worth doing. So although it can be an escape, many teachers I knew throughout the years I was in public education would actually tell kids from certain communities that education was their way out of that community. That's pretty tough. If you're telling a person that the way out is to leave their community, that which they know, that which they have love for, and that which loves them, that's a hard thing to sell students. And also what we do, that's a big mistake when we start, and I'm speaking specifically of how we work with Black children, because I've worked in urban settings where I've seen teachers of another race talk to Black students about the importance of education. It's always amounted to this idea of escaping something. And the truth of the matter is, we escape. We go get education. We go get, good job, things like that. We move to suburbia thinking our children will be great because we're putting them in great schools. And then our kids catch hell in those schools too, because it's a teacher looking at them with other assumptions about them. And then we're telling our kids how to walk a certain way and how to talk a certain way so they don't get discriminated against, things like that. We're setting them up and trying to prepare them for a world that will reject them, and that's a tough sell, to tell a kid to get an education so you can enter into a world that don't want you no way. That's a tough sell. So sometimes education is a good meaning, is a good safe bet, but what are the messages that we're sending? I think once again, along with education, may want to seek some counseling, may want to seek some therapy, may want to seek some help to go through the real issue, because education will not solve the issue that you're really dealing with. And where I get that from, I'm actually working with someone right now to going through a book that I'm reading. The book is called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul. So that book talks about how to deal with your pains and face it head on rather than build structures around it. And I think education, particularly for me, was my attempt to build a structure around what I needed therapy for. When your parents divorce and you don't quite understand what's going on, you just know one day you woke up with two apartments, instead of one, and now you got to get on a train to go spend a weekend with your father and things like that. Or, you're going through all these other things. I won't put my personal business out there, but you're dealing with those issues, whereas I should have probably had a therapist. I just had school. When I had a falling out with my friends in the 10th grade and it got very bad, and I don't want to bring that up because probably some of them are on here, or we'll see this and we got to deal with it again. But it got really bad, and I just didn't want to be around. I remember actually planning out. I only had, it was 10th grade, middle of 10th grade. I was like, I got a year and a half or so to get up out of here. And once I go off to college, I'm out. Now, I had no idea where I was going to college to, but I knew that once I was gone, I wasn't coming back. But that was me trying to build education to relieve me of that. So that is in and of itself is a bad reason. I probably should have had a therapist to help guide me through those issues and leave education as what it's supposed to do for me, and that's enlightened. That's allow me to draw within my talents and go forward, things like that. But that was the idea at that time. Now I want to take a quick pause here. Oh, I see once again, Juan coming through. I'm gonna have to have you on the show, Juan. But essentially it was growth and self-identity. I needed help with that. I'm not sure my history class was going to help me with that. In fact, quiet as kept, one of my educational wounds came from my 11th grade history teacher. Talk about him another day. But before we go, I want to give some more shout outs, some more thoughts to people. Once again, shout out to Dr. Ramon Goins and the Done Dissertation. If you're working on your dissertation or in that stage, you can find him at thedonedissertation.com. I have another special announcement for instructors. I know you're probably seeing what I have here on the screen. If you are a teacher, elementary, middle grades teacher, and you are good at math and you are good at content creation, I am actually looking for instructors to take part in a summer camp for rising 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Now, the cool concept is this. You will actually create content and micro skills videos, and we'll talk about what that means, for rising 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. They can embark in this summer. It allows them early exposure, and I'll be talking to parents in a minute. It allows them early exposure, but in doing so, you will share in the profits. You take 40% of every enrollment in your grade level. Now imagine if you have 200 students enrolled and they pay, let's say, $200 a piece. So you take $80 times 200. That's what you get. You share in the profits. You actually don't lose anything because, once again, you just have to create the content. You lose no money, but you can gain. And the cool thing is there's no student interaction. You will have the content created before the summer begins. So that when the summer begins, you start off, once I get the full enrollments, I cut a check, make sure you get your profits, and you're on your way. But you create the content for 4th, 5th, or 6th grade math. And you create online content for them. It's very simple, very easy. If you want more information about it, you can look up my information on any social media. Just go to Derek Robinson on My Advantage on LLC on Instagram, and I'm posting all the time about these positions. So I want you to check that out and go back there and check it out too. I'm putting in the chat for those who will give me the chat. You'll see the link for the summer camp and also a link to the actual position post where I have the actual ability to go in and be able to do the application. The application is, I'm asking you to prove yourself, so I want you to be able to do that. So please, 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 if you know of some elementary or middle school teachers, particularly in math, connect them. And I want to make sure I get the best of the best. They can be anywhere in the United States. As long as they got a computer and they can create the content, I want to see them in this summer camp creating materials for parents, because getting that leg up, getting that early exposure is going to be very good for students. I did it with my children when they were rising 4th and 5th graders. I made sure they got early exposure to the materials so it wasn't a shock to them when they actually entered it in the classroom. But that is what we do. You will share in the profits, you will create content, and you will have no student interaction. You don't have to teach people during the summer. You can actually make your summer money before summer begins. But that is that. So I see we have Mr. James Lampkin. I got you coming up. The conversation right now, Brother James, we're talking about what does education mean for you? So if you want to come in on the conversation or you want to put it in the chat, either one is fine for me. But I would love to hear your perception on this. And if, for those of you who do not know, James Lampkin was a student of mine when I first got started teaching. So I was new to teaching, and he was new to me being new to teaching. But we had a great time, really connected and bonded with the guys. He made it worthwhile coming to school, coming to work every day. And what he did not know was that I was going through some stuff at that time. I was going through a divorce and all of that kind of stuff. But it was students like James who made it worthwhile to come to school. I prepared to impress them. I wanted to impress them every time I came into that classroom. So shout out, James. Appreciate you, brother. But I never said that before. So I'm going to actually holler at you real quick, James. I would love to bring you in. So let me do that. I'm learning how to do all this stuff here. So if you can see this comment, come on in. So while we're doing that too, I would like to give you a quick shout out again. Our next shout out was to actually James Lampkin. Conversations with Lamp on SoundCloud and Instagram. Excellent brother, excellent content. He just sent one the other week that was fire. It was great. Parents out here, I am interested in you. If you want to put your children in a summer camp that will help them deal with summer learning loss, your advantage starts here. We have the camp ready. So I would love to have you come in and check us out. I will actually put the program page. If you know me, you can catch me on any of my platforms. I will put out advertisements for you to actually join in and be part of this camp. Now, what this camp does, and James, I just invited you. Let me know if you were able to come in. I got you.
What's going on?
What's happening? Let me knock this out real quick. I'll be right with you, James. But for parents, this is a chance for you to get an advantage in rising 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students. If your child is a rising 4th, 5th, or 6th grader, getting them this advantage in math to be actually able to go with our structured curriculum, give them early exposure to the curriculum for math. You'll be instructed by qualified teachers nationwide, mostly focusing on skills and content. And the coolest thing about this summer camp is, while it is a 30-day recommended curriculum, it is pretty much self-paced, and you keep access to the material for a year. So you can look at it any time. You can go back to it as your students are going through that particular topic or concept. You can always come back and join in on that on the content that was created for you. So you get access for a full year. LaWan, I see you're interested. Please look it up. Check us out. Early registration ends March 15th. So you can get in at a discounted price right now. And we're putting together all of that so you're able to go ahead and pay and register right now. But would love for you to take part in this process. So once again, it is the Math Advantage Camp, giving you an advantage for early exposure and also to tackle summer learning loss. So thank you for that. Brother James, how you doing, man?
What's going on? How you doing, man? Can you hear me?
It's my first time having somebody on. I can't hear you.
Hold on. Let me try something. Hold on.
I know what I need to do. Let me put my headphones on. I probably got it better that way.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I got you. Apparently, I'm just gonna have to wear these headphones and look like.
Yeah, I had on the AirPods, so that might have been what it was.
Yeah. How you doing, brother?
Okay. Man, I'm good. How you doing?
Everything is going well, man. Can't complain. Things like that, man. Doing well. But man, I checked out that show you
Hey,
sent last week, man.
congratulations, man. I'm happy to see that you're doing this.
Oh man, this has been cool, man. I've been enjoying it and things like that, man. Opportunity to kind of share information, things like that. It's still in the early process. I'm still learning as I go. Um, but yeah, it's been real good, man. I enjoyed the time getting on here. I know that you got to plant that seed and you know and keep consistent at it. But everything's going well, man. I'm almost certain that you had some of the same things getting started with your podcast, man. But I'm putting it out there, man, and hopping on faith, hoping that people are talking and things like that. I have a rather niche audience, so it's really pre-dissertation students, but I try to open it up to where I'm talking to everybody. Like tonight's topic is just education, in general, and how we associate with it. So
I
let
tell
me
you
ask you a
what,
question,
though,
man.
I'll say this: I would trust if anybody I would trust with my kid is you. So I'm really excited, and I think anybody who signs up will be in for a great deal. Because I know you wouldn't get. I know how you are. Like you're not gonna get
Oh,
behind nothing you can't be successful with. So
thank you, brother. I appreciate that. So
yeah, I'm a little surprised it's math, but then I saw you got you're gonna have like other teachers doing it.
oh yeah, yeah, man. I'm just hiring and making sure they get the content right and things like that. But over the years, I've gotten closer to math. When I was in my last
Really?
high school, when I was last high school assignment, I was the administrator over the math department. So I kind of got close to what we had to raise those scores. So they sent me in. So, and the scores got raised. They got raised, but they sent me in that way. Next year, we will expand it to English language arts because you want to deal with. I want to do it before students get to middle school, and as soon as they get to middle school. That's why it's like rising fourth, fifth, and sixth graders. Because I've also been an administrator in middle schools, and I see where it starts to be kind of a fork in the road. You know, and some students begin to get great education exposure, and some don't. And what I noticed in talking with parents is that the parents who get the great exposure didn't wait on the school to educate their child. They took that time and did things themselves. So they made schools supplemental to their education. The parents who didn't, and it's no fault of their own because I understand you got to work, you got to make sure the lights come on, and that's your responsibility. That's what you owe schools. You owe schools that your
Hmm.
lights come on. You ain't got to be a science teacher. We got science teachers for that. you know, but what I noticed is that they wanted everything to be equal. So we got one group who wants everything to be equal. We got another group who's looking for an advantage every chance they get. So my idea with this was to try and give advantage to people who don't normally get those advantages. I was even working in high schools, and I gotta close out soon because I got a meeting at 7:40. But I was working in high school,
Okay.
and I'm talking to the IB students, to the Black IB students, and they were falling behind. So I'm just kind of like trying to motivate them, and I said, like, y'all in study groups? No. Now what I did know was that many of the students who weren't the students I was talking to, they were in study groups in the summer. They had
Mm.
relationships. They were discussing the materials and things like that. So they hit the ground running. Those students who didn't have exposure to this, they hit the ground trying to pull their bike back up. you know, so it was like
Mm.
it's about getting that kind of advantage for everybody. You know, so you know who I love, and you know who I'm rooting for in this thing. So it's about getting an advantage for everybody. You know, some parents who have the means and the resources and things like that, they have those resources available. I put this camp together, and I'm not charging what normal camps charge because I heard about how normal camps be charging like $1,000 and things like that. I don't want to rob nobody, but I do want to give a quality product. And the cool thing is, it's an advantage for the teachers because, what if I got paid per student in every class daily? What if I could share in school
Mm-hmm.
profit? you know, Things like that. As a teacher, you're on labor. You're not splitting the profits of what school districts make and bring in and things like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. I'm hoping that people take that leap of faith with me. Um, Waiting for applications to start coming in because I do want to give them time. We got to go through an interview process and all of that. And I'm using all the research skills I can to create better interviews and things like that. So um, that is it, man. That's what we're going for. So I'd appreciate it, man. If you know somebody, you know, kids in elementary school, who could use this and things like that, man, share with them.
I'll
Yeah.
I'm going to look into it for myself because my daughter,
Yeah.
ironically, my daughter did this math. She did a math camp, and I must say it does help a lot.
Yeah.
Now, what you said is really important. Thank God, me and my wife have the means and the resources to do it. That
Hmm.
is important, but we have to understand that investment is needed for our kids. My daughter needed that. It was a necessity for us. So
Hmm.
I encourage anyone who can somehow find the means, even if you have to sacrifice some things, because it's only a couple months.
Yeah.
So even if
Yeah.
you have to make a sacrifice for a couple months, it's worth it for your kid.
Yes. And let me say this. Thank you, Luwan. I see you out there. I'm really enjoying your comments and your words tonight. Got to have you on here too at some time. Um, but it's 7:37. I got to cut this short. James,
Yep.
thank you for having me. I want you to be on here earlier, man. We got to do a talk again or something. Or I'll come to your show whenever you
Hey,
want.
look, I'm gonna get in touch with you offline because I want to set something up with you.
All right.
Okay.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate you.
Hey,
Luwan,
take care.
appreciate you. All right. Everybody, we'll see you later. This is Dissertation Journey with Derek. Thank you and take care. See you next week.